And to details, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directed on Thursday to complete all buildings in the Olympic Village as the new administrative capital in accordance with international modern standards. These came during the President's meeting with Major General Amir Sayed Ahmad, the Presidential Advisor for Urban Planning, and Major General Ihab al-Far, the head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority, as well as General Ashraf al-Arabi, the head of the Advisory Office of the Engineering Authority. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said the meeting addressed the follow-up to the construction and engineering position of a number of the Republic-wide projects by the Armed Forces Engineering Authority around the country. The meeting tackled the executive position of a number of establishments in the new administrative capital. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi paid tribute on Thursday for Egyptian farmers on Egyptian Farmers' Day, in which they gained independence, dignity and freedom. The president reaffirmed his keenness to support Egyptian farmers and provide them with all elements of a dignified life. President el-Sisi also praised farmers' achievements in all eras. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli described on Thursday the national project to develop rural areas under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's initiative as a huge project that represents all goals of the United Nations Development Goals 2030. During his meeting with UN Under-Secretary General Khaled Abouzar, Premier Madbouli noted that the project aims at improving the lives of almost half the population. He called on the UN officials to follow up on the implementation of this unprecedented project. Madbouli said the government worked hard during the corona pandemic to release a balance between protecting citizens' health and maintaining economic growth rates. The Prime Minister also expressed his keenness to host the United Nations 27th Conference on Climate Change. Arab foreign ministers concluded in Cairo their 156th ordinary session under the chairmanship of Kuwait on Thursday, during which they discussed a number of files, on top of which was the Palestinian cause, as well as the Iranian and Turkish interference in the Arab affairs. The details.
Arab foreign ministers wrapped up their 156th ordinary session at the Arab League headquarters in Cairo, which was held under the chairmanship of Kuwait on Thursday. The ministers probed a number of issues, including the Palestinian cause, as well as Iranian and Turkish interference in the Arab affairs. Addressing a press conference after the session, Kuwaiti foreign minister and the chairman of the current session, Sheikh Ahmed Nasser al-Subah, said that the ministers have discussed the strategic frameworks of the Arab-African ties. For his part, Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Gheit said there is a deficit in budget of the United Nations to fund the Palestinians to lighten their sufferings. Abul Gheit also said that the Palestinian side does not expect things to go as expected, adding that the group of North Africa sent a message over developments in the region. He stressed that dialogue and cooperation should prevail to enhance the Arab action and solidarity, adding that the ministers have been informed of preparations of an upcoming conference on the Arab region. The Arab League chief stressed that UNRWA plays a pivotal role for the sake of Palestinian refugees and their stability, adding that the Israeli aggression was highlighted during the meeting. He noted that the Syrian issue was reviewed with the aim of returning the country to the pan-Arab body. Earlier at the opening session, the Kuwaiti minister expressed the pan-Arab body's support for Egypt's stance regarding Ethiopia's dam crisis and rejected any unilateral actions related to the issue. He called for a unified Arab actions to face the repercussions of the coronavirus pandemic and to overcome differences with the aim of reaching a unified stance on the latest challenges facing the region. The Kuwaiti top diplomat held Israel responsible for violations against Palestinian people and stressed the need to revive the Middle East peace process. For his part, the Arab League Secretary General warned that foreign parties are carrying out their own agenda in Yemen, adding that achieving stability and security is a key step towards ending the crisis. He called for a Lebanese government to be formed immediately to end the country's crisis. And on Libya, the Arab League chief called on the Libyan parties to implement the outcome of the Berlin Conference to achieve the Libyan unity and on all mercenaries to leave the country. As for the Palestinian cause, the Secretary General called for a relaunch of the Middle East peace process based on the two-state solution.
On the sidelines of the meeting, Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri met with his Jordanian counterpart Ayman al-Safadi and Palestinian counterpart Riyad al-Maliki, during which they discussed means of boosting trilateral relations as well as coordination stances on regional issues of common concern. At a consultation meeting between Shukri and al-Safadi and al-Maliki at the Foreign Ministry's Tahrir Palace, the top diplomat underscored Egypt's constant stance in supporting the Palestinian cause and legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. He stressed that concerned regional and international parties should carry out their roles in providing the atmosphere that helps to push the peace process. For their part, both the Jordanian and Palestinian ministers expressed their appreciation for the Egyptian initiative of Gaza reconstruction and offering support to the Palestinian territories. The meeting discussed the latest developments of the Palestinian cause and efforts exerted to revive the Middle East peace process and restart negotiations aimed at reaching a comprehensive and just settlement. The Quartet Arab Ministerial Committee on Iran held a meeting in Cairo on Thursday, headed by Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Faisal Abdullah bin Farhan. The meeting probed the latest developments in the Iranian file and means of facing Tehran's intervention in Arab countries' internal affairs. The committee, which submitted its report on the outcome of its meetings to the 156th session of the Arab League Foreign Ministries, included in its membership Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, in addition to the Arab League chief. Egypt's first International Cooperation Forum wrapped up its activities in Cairo on Thursday under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Ministry of International Cooperation. The conference tackled the role of multilateralism and international cooperation in achieving sustainable development goals during coronavirus pandemic. Nile TV's Minna Ad-Dsu'i has the details.
Under the auspices of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the first edition of the Egypt International Cooperation Forum was launched in the presence of Egyptian and African ministers, development partners, businessmen and economists.
Yeah, actually we are very much delighted to see the first version of the International Cooperation Forum that is organized by Egypt today, because this is actually really timely, and we need actually now to put actually the efforts together so that we can really encounter all the challenges that is facing the member countries during the pandemic. So this timely forum is actually going to really discuss all the issues that is facing, of course, the member countries, and it will involve as well some suggestions and solutions of how to enhance cooperation among all partners, whether governments, private sector, international organizations, MDBs. So it is very timely and very important really for all of us to understand that without really having partnership, we will not be able to make a big difference actually in solving these issues.
A gathering was held of national, regional and international policymakers, development partners, financial private sector companies, civil society organizations and think tanks who embarked on an essential journey to tackle the role of multilateralism and international cooperation to engage for impact and realize the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda.
Well, actually, in Africa, and especially in my country, in Nigeria, we have a very large infrastructure deficit. We need to work, we don't have any option, we have to work with the private sector to be able to unlock financing that sits within the private sector, work in partnership with government to enable us to build out infrastructure, to enable us to roll out vaccine manufacturing and several other things that we require to industrialize our country. We're doing that in our country by liberalizing our fiscal regimes to make it more attractive for businesses to operate, by also unlocking the challenges that the businesses have, reducing bureaucracy, enhancing the infrastructure that businesses need, especially power, to be able to support the businesses to grow in Nigeria.
A press conference took place with Her Excellency Dr. Raniel Mashot, the Minister of International Cooperation, discussing the importance of the forum and the crucial topics it tackles and the role of multilateralism and international cooperation in achieving sustainable development goals.
So the main objective of of the forum over the next 2 days is to first of all bring in multilateral parties that are looking to support African countries, through COVID recovery. But it's also to bring in, government and private sector from other countries so that there can be a sharing of knowledge and experience on how to really recover, through this COVID period. Now, recovering, we want to build back better but more boldly. And so it also means, doing that really with a greening perspective, okay? And the greening perspective is not nice to have. It's actually very important in terms of risk mitigation. It's very important in terms of optimizing the limited capital that public sector has. Because, for example, we have floods, across Africa. So we have to build back our roads and bridges in anticipation of those floods and not rather wait for them to be decimated by those floods. There is a commitment by the developed world, through agencies like the Green Climate Fund, to provide concessionary money that we can blend with, commercial money to invest in all of these greener infrastructure projects. And so we do hope that, this forum is just one of the important ways of convening us while we're in COVID, to create an urgency, to create the right partnerships, to create the right sharing of knowledge, so that collectively Africa emerges from this COVID pandemic stronger.
Egypt International Cooperation Forum is a 2-day forum that is comprised of various discussions delving into the importance of collaboration for an inclusive and green future. Egypt International Cooperation Forum is a 2-day forum that tackles discussions globally and locally to establish the green economy, sustainable development recovery during the COVID-19 pandemic. Minna Dessouki, Nile TV International.
And to details. Egypt's stock market indices collectively retreated during Thursday's session, affected by selling operations of local and foreign investors. The benchmark EGX 30 index went down by 0.71% to reach 11,056 points. The equal weight index EGX 50 declined 1.43%, while the small and medium businesses EGX 70 dipped 1.63%. The broader EGX 100 index dropped by 1.35%. Meanwhile, the market capitalization lost around £5.92 billion at closure.